Good morning, everybody. This is the final for Computer for Architects. Very proud of all the work the students had generated. The prime goal of this class was to learn about animation, rendering, and materials, and how to make the physical world, the analog world, be represented behavior-wise and material-wise in virtual reality, or what they call right now also digital twins. Each student will have 12 minutes to present their projects, and welcome to this most innovative class. The first one will be Sarah Ramirez.
Okay, so I did two separate presentations, one for 3ds Max and one for Twinmotion. So this is the presentation for 3ds Max. It starts with my bio and some of the work I've done in previous classes. And then we go into getting started with 3ds Max. So we have the different interface sections. We have our main toolbar, the ribbon, the scene explorer, and a little explanation about what each one does. And this information comes straight from the Autodesk website. We continue with viewport layouts, command panel, and viewports, Max script, mini listener, status line, and prompt line. And then there are like 6 more that I still need to add. Next, we go into primitive objects. Most of the slides for primitive objects are all similar. So at the top, it says all primitive objects can be found in the command panel on the Create tab under the standard primitives menu option. And it kind of gives a step-by-step on how to place the shape. So for a box, you click and pull, and that would be the base of your shape. And then you click again to set the 3rd dimension. And it's going to depend what viewport you're using, whether if it's the length or the height. And then if you want to keep placing the same shape, you just keep clicking. Otherwise, you have to hit escape or the object button to deactivate the command. For a sphere, similar thing, only difference being that a sphere, you only click once. You start from the center and you pull out to set your radius. Same thing with the geosphere. The difference between a geosphere and a regular sphere is that a geosphere is made up of many triangular faces, while a sphere is made up of 4-sided faces. So it's just vertical and parallel lines. And you could see the differences in the wireframe views over here on the right. The light blue circle is the sphere, and you could see it's just a bunch of little squares, and all the other ones are geospheres. It's hard to see, but they're all little triangles. For a torus, again, same steps to put it into your project. You start with the radius of the center, and then you pull out for the width that you want your shape to be. And lastly, you set the height. For a tube, same thing. First, you set the radius, the thickness of the tube, and then the height. For a cone, you first set the radius of the bottom, and then you set the height, and it'll look like a cylinder. And your 3rd click is what's going to make it slanted. And you don't have to slant it all the way to a point. You can leave it flat at the top if that's the shape you desire. Or you just pull all the way and you get a point at the top, you have your cone. For a cylinder, again, set the radius and pull up for the height. For a pyramid, you start placing the base, the square, to the length and width that you want, and then you pull up to set the height. And for a teapot, you just click wherever you want to place it and pull out. Length, width, and height all get set together on one click. So next we have our modify controls. So the first one being color. Now this technically doesn't fall under the modify controls, but I included it because it is one of the things we use to modify our projects. So to change the color of an object, you click the object you want to change, and then in the command panel below the object types, you'll see the name and the color box of the current object, and you'll see the color assigned to it to the right of the name. So you click on the square displaying the color, and that will open the object color palette. And you could choose from the preset colors or click on the Add Custom Colors button to open the color selector and choose a more specific shade. When the new color is chosen, you click OK in the object color palette, and the object will be reset to its new color. Next, we have the move command. So you would click first on the object you want to move, and then on the main toolbar, you click the button that has the 4 intersecting arrows, and that activates the move command. 3 arrows will show up, all connected, and they represent the X, Y, and Z axis. You can use these to move the shape on a specific axis, or you can click on the box that connects all 3 axes and move the shape in any direction. Or alternatively, once you start the move command, you can use the transformation type area at the bottom and choose specific axis points for your shape. And this would be based off of the grid. So 0, 0 would be, well, 0, 0, 0 would be the very middle point of your grid. Anything going to the right goes up, anything going to the left goes down, up, going upwards, positive numbers, downwards, negative, and so on. Next, we have rotate. So for this one, after clicking on your object, you click on the arrow that's in the shape of a circle, and you'll see 4 different circles appear on your object. The outer gray circle represents the view you're currently in, and then the other 3 circles represent one of the axis lines. Same as with the move command, you can click on one of the axis lines to move your object solely on that axis. Or another thing you can do instead once you activate rotate mode is you can use a transformation type area located at the bottom of the screen. You would input the number of degrees you want the object rotated in each axis, and this would be going clockwise. So if you put 90 degrees, you're going 90 degrees to the left, not to the right. Last, we have scale. And this is the button that has a little solid square with a larger dashed line square. For this one, 3 connecting triangles will appear on the shape to represent the different axis lines, and I did mark them down here. So this yellow triangle here, this will let you pull or squeeze in the object uniformly on all 3 axes. But if you don't want to move one of your axis dimensions, you can click these outer lines here, like in the middle of these 2 lines, and it will only move those 2 axis points. So if I were to click in this space here, I would only be moving or scaling the object on the X and Z axis. And lastly, if I only want to scale it on one axis point, I would click one of the axis lines here that pull outside. To add text, you click the text button in the command panel, and then you place it in one of your viewports. You then use your modification tools to move and place the text where you want it to be. With the text selected in the command panel, you'll go from the Create tab to the Modify tab. And then the section labeled Parameters, you use the text box to change the text. And then below that, you can also change the format of the text, but you have to make sure that the text is highlighted or else it won't apply. You can then scroll down to the section labeled geometry and use the extrude input box to make the text three-dimensional. The more you extrude, the further out the text will go. And in this section, you can also edit the bevel, which will give the text like a slope or a curve at the selected style. If you want it to look like it's getting smaller, the further out it goes, or if you want it to look like rounded letters, this would be where you do that. To add text to a spherical or rounded primitive object, you would go to the command panel and under splines, the splines menu, you would click the button that says circle and draw a circle around the object that you want to add the text to. And you would use modify tools, scale and move to move your circle to fit around your object without leaving any space. So this top picture here shows the circle when it's first placed. And then in the second picture, it's been scaled and moved to fit exactly snugly around the sphere. You then click on the text that you want to wrap around the primitive object. And in the command panel, you would move from the create tab to the modify tab, and then open the menu that says modifier list and click on path deform. The parameters section will change with new commands. And in the parameters section, you click the button that says pick path and you click on your circle. You then click on the button that says move to path and your text will move to the circle. But if your text is not oriented in the direction you want it going, you can then click on, there's a button in the path. I forgot to write it here, but there's a button that will tell you, oh, here it is. Button that says move to path if your text is not on the circle. If it's not oriented in the direction you want it going, so if it's laying down or if it's going sideways, you use the path deform axis section inside the parameters to change which axis your text sits on. So if you want it on the x-axis, on the y-axis, on the z-axis. And then you, in the same section, you can use the rotation option to slope your text to the curve of your object where it will be placed. So here on this sphere, the word architecture and the word design, I added rotation to them so that they would curve upward with the sphere instead of just sticking up and out. Environmental, I didn't have to edit because it's at the center, so it fit nicely there. For the first animation, before beginning any animation, make sure to set the number of frames you want to use. The more frames you use, the more time you have to space out the different scenes. You do this on the time configuration button. Changing the speed is only going to apply in 3ds Max. Once you render, it's not going to be applied. So it's important to change the frames. Under keyframing, we click on the button that says set K and then click on set keys, which is the plus sign to set the current placement of the objects. You move your object to the next step and then decide how many frames you want to take to complete that step. And once again, hit the plus sign once your time slider is on that number frame. And you keep doing that until you complete your animation. You can press the play button in the transportation control center to see how your object moves and how fast or slow it goes. To edit the animation, you just click on the mark that's red, green, and blue. You can delete it or move it to set it to a new position. If you move it, that's changing the amount of time it takes for the animation to go from one step to another. And you can do this for every object. And every object you do, if they're using the same number frame, they're going to be working simultaneously. So I on my project have 2 animations working simultaneously because they're using the same number of frames. For the second animation, first we create a camera view. This is very similar to the primitive objects. You click the button that says target, and you place the camera far enough away that you'll be able to capture the scene, but not too far away. And then you place the target at the center of your scene. And to animate it, you create a circle and you draw the circle around your scene. Then you click on your camera and you expand the assign controller section. And in there, you'll see a line that says path constraint, and a new section will appear named path parameters. Here you'll add a path and click on the circle. And then you make sure your camera is oriented the correct way, that it's facing your scene. And you click the select object button on the main toolbar to unselect the camera if no further changes need to be made. For lighting in the command panel, you change the menu option to Arnold and use the Arnold light. Once you place the light, you then click on the light and pull towards the item that you want illuminated. To animate it, it's the same steps as animating the camera. The only difference being that before unselecting the light, in the path parameter section under path options, make sure that the follow box is checked so that the light follows your target object. Otherwise, the light's going to move away from your scene. So you want to make sure it's set to follow the path it's taking. To render, make sure that the view you want is active and go to the render setup dialog box. For the common parameters, make sure you have active time segment checked. Scroll to the bottom and click on files, and this will be where you can choose where to save your file, what to name it, and set it as an AVI file. You then click the render button and 3ds Max will start rendering your scene, and two windows will pop up, one showing you frame by frame what's being rendered, and the other one's going to show you the progress, so how many frames are left to render, how much time's left, and so forth. And lastly, this is my animation. So you could see the different objects moving together. I won't play the whole thing because it's like 3 minutes. And then for twin motion, so far I've only put in the different twin motion designs I did. This is the first design I did for the tiny house. This is the second design. This one is the third design. And these are all using different materials, different textures. This is the fourth design. And then the last one would be the design I put into the city landscape, where I put a specific address to place it. I do still need to populate the information on this PowerPoint. And yeah, that's the end of my presentation.
Okay, this is my class log for Architecture 261. I started studying architecture to fulfill my dream of designing and owning a $1 million home. Here is my email. First was research and learning about 3ds Max. I put everything that I learned right here. Here's the link. I learned it from LinkedIn. Here are all the sections of everything that I learned. So first, getting started, we have your workspace. Managing workspaces where you can save and rename and change the workspace properties. You can change the workspace to have different layouts by clicking the drop-down menu on the right side. You can also manually change your workspace by grabbing the bars and dragging them. Now you'll want to click on File at the top left and scroll down to Preferences. Once the menu bar pops up, you can click on Files and place a check mark on Convert Local File Paths to Relative. By turning the Convert Local File Paths to Relative, you will store all the assets, locations relative to the current project. So putting all of your things into a file, if you want to create a new folder to put your parts in, then you just go to your desktop, you right click on the drop down menu, you click New Folder, and then you title that folder, whatever you want to title it. To issue a command to create a default project folder structure, you can click on the file and then go to project and then click create default. If you need any help on 3ds Max, then you can click the help on menu from the previous slide. Here is everything that is labeled for the interface. So you have the command panel, the brush preset toolbar, the viewports, the ribbon, the main toolbar, the project toolbar, auto backup, the time slider, transport controls, keyframing, navigation tools, scene explorer, transform type area, and Max script mini listener. Here is a little description about what each of them do. And here is some more. Here I explain everything that is on the right top corner. You have the toggle scene explorer, then you have the toggle layer explorer, the show ribbon, the curve editor, and the schematic view. To hide any part of your workspace, you can right click on the sections, grab the sections grab bar, and uncheck that box to hide that part. Once you have a layout that you like, you can lock it in place by going to Customize and clicking Lock UI Layout. Make sure you save your new interface by going to Manage Workspaces and then clicking Save Default State. How to change your viewport background and color, you'll want to go to the Customize tab and then click on Customize User Interface. Then you'll go to the Colors tab. And before you make changes, you want to save the current viewport by clicking Save and adding it to your UI folder. Under the elements, you're going to scroll down to Viewport Background. Then you're going to choose your color and click Apply Colors Now. You can also change your grid line colors by clicking the drop-down menu under Elements and selecting Grids, then selecting the color or intensity. If you want to change your background from gradient to solid, then again, you go to all the viewports default settings. You go to the View tab, then you go to Viewport Background. You click Configure Viewport Background. Then you'll select Customize User Interface Solid Color, and then apply to all views and press OK. And then now you can switch your viewports from a solid to gradient, or if you want to change it back. Moving on to camera techniques. This is how you create a camera. To create a camera, you go to the command panel under the cameras category. Then you want to choose which camera type you want, standard or physical. Both types of camera have a target to focus on. There are 3 types of cameras: standard and physical cameras, which act as a real-life camera, and the Arnold cameras. Then I moved into lighting, how to create a light. You'll click on the light bulb in the command panel, and then you'll want to select photometric because it will work with pretty much any renderer. A standard lights are legacy light that aren't physically accurate. Once you choose photometric light, you'll choose the object type, free light, then click no on the dialog box that pops up and place your light where you want it. To change the intensity of your light and color, you'll select the light and then go to the modify panel. You'll see a section labeled intensity, color, and mutation. You'll switch the intensity to LM, which is lumens. Changing the number of lumens determines how bright your light bulb is. To change the color, you'll just select color under the color tab. Some more about lighting, how to render a light. This is everything you'll need to know on how rendering lights. Then I moved into materials. So to start, you want to right click or click the keyboard command M to enter your slate material editor. Once you open that, your drop-down menu you'll right click and you'll get a drop-down menu. You'll want to click materials, then you'll want to click general, and you'll want to make a physical material. Once you make the physical material, you can drag this little node onto a wall, and the material will then be placed onto your wall. If you want to apply your material to multiple surfaces at once, you can select all of the surfaces and drag the material onto the surface, and then click assign to selection instead of assigning the material to one object. Here is how I added pictures onto my ADU house. I went to the rendering tab, and then I clicked material editor. Lastly, I clicked slate editor, or you can use the keyboard command M. Then I right clicked in the view 1 port and select maps. Then I selected general, and then I clicked bitmap. And then I chose the photo that I wanted to use. And then if you don't want your photo tiled or mirrored, then you uncheck it here at the map coordinates. After that, I created a physical material, as I showed you last time. And I connected the photo to the base color map. After that, I dragged the node to the wall and placed it on there. Then to make your picture fit onto the wall, you just go to the editors tab in the command panel and select modifiers list, then scroll down to UVW map, and lastly select box, and then you have your picture there. For animation, first you want to select an object type from your command panel. Then you want to place it into your viewport by clicking and dragging the edges to your desired size. then clicking again to place it. In key framing, you want to click Set Key to record the motions of your object. Now, before you drag your object, you'll need to move the time slider to get that motion to create an animation. Here, down here, I did a little picture of the time slider, and these are the nodes that you'll see when you move your object. And then here's the animation that I made. So then I moved into renderings. Here is every type of renderer on 3ds Max, and a little bit about how to render an animation and how to change the visual style of a rendering. Then I moved into, here are all of my projects that I did on 3ds Max, my animation of primitives. Here's a little video that I made. Okay. And then for my second project, I inputted my ADU house into 3ds Max, and I put a bunch of pictures of my favorite anime characters on there. And then I made an animation of the exterior of the house. Okay, and that concludes my class log.
Okay. Okay, good morning. This is my presentation. So 3ds Studio Max, this is the interface. The software is best used for character modeling, animation, and rendering photorealistic objects or buildings. And so you have a lot on your interface, so it's important not to get overwhelmed. You have your viewport display, you have your scene explorer, your command panel, and your time and navigation. And then your most important commands are gonna be at the top over here. And then more on the interface, you can press on this thing, and then it will show a lot of different views, or you can use the 3D cube here to move around your project. And then some common shortcuts to use would be Control-C, which is copy, Control-V, paste, and Control-Z, which is undo. And then for dealing with shapes and objects, there's more commands that I'll explain a bit later. And then it's also very important to save your project constantly in case you encounter a crash. You go to File, and then there's going to be 3 save options. Okay, starting with your standard primitives, to start creating, go to the Create tab, and then a list will pop up, and go to your standard. And then there's a few different shapes here that you can use. Then this is the shortcuts I mentioned earlier. The W command lets you move your shape. The E command lets you rotate, and then your R command lets you scale your shape. Okay, moving on to text. So you go to your Create tab once again, and then go to Shapes, and then you will find Text. And then you can change your font color, and other adjustments in your in this tab. And then 3D text. go to text once again, and then press the modify, which is this thing. Then go to your modifier list and then press bevel, and this will make your text 3D. And then to change how thick your words are, you just go to your bevel values and increase your height. And I outline this in green. Okay, moving on to circle animation. So to start your circle animation, you first start by drawing a circle. You go to create shape circle around your object. And then I just quickly put a link for a video that's useful. The next step is create your camera. So you go to create tab, you go to camera, and make sure you get a target camera. And then once you place the camera, you are gonna need to point it towards your object. And it'll look like this. Okay, and now you click on your camera and go to the motion setting right here. Go to assign controller, click on position, then click the checkbox circled in green. I'll have to move this. And then a pop-up screen will show, so select path constraint from here. And then scroll down until you see path parameters. Click add path and then press on the circle that you made. And now the camera is locked onto the circle. And this will make your animation. Okay, from here you can just set one of your views to cameras and then press the play button at the bottom of your interface to see your animation. And then using your clock button, you can also make more adjustments, such as the speed. And then once you've made your animation, you need to do a few more things to export it. So go to rendering, render setup, and then you need to select range from your common parameters. You can increase your range from 100 to make it longer, or if you want to make it shorter, make it less than 100. And then from here, make sure that your view to render is saying a camera. Otherwise, it will not render animation. And then step 3, press the save file right under render. And here you can save your file as an AVI file or whatever type is needed. And then finally hit the render button and you will have your animation. So this is just a mini demonstration of the animation expert. I just did a circle animation of a pyramid. Okay, moving on to my first project, which was an abstract portfolio space. And we basically just combine all the concepts we learned, such as the interface, text, your polygons, and then animation. This is a circle animation I did for it. Okay, moving on to materials. This one's a little bit tricky, but I did add a video link, which is helpful a bit later. Okay, so start by pressing M on your keyboard, and this will open your material editor. Then right click, go to maps, general bitmap. This will allow you to choose an image to add a material of. Then after you choose your image, right click again, choose material, and then physical material. And you're gonna need to connect your bitmap to the material using the nodes as seen here. After that, using your control button, select the faces of your wall or whatever you need to attach the material to. Here I just have my tiny house. And basically you drag the node of the physical property to the wall. And then a pop-up's gonna appear asking you to assign material. And just click yes. And then there's a problem is that your material won't apply correctly unless you do a few more steps. So what you need to do is then add a modifier called UVW map, and then from parameters, check the one named box or whichever one will fit the best. And this is a YouTube video link from another trade tech student, which was very helpful in learning how to add materials. Okay, moving on. How to import Revit file. It's very straightforward to import Revit or other program files, and you can do so by going to File and then Import, and you can just find your file in your computer. And so I imported my tiny house, and then I did an animation and added materials on it. Okay, I believe that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Max, to the introduction to 3D Max. So the software is used for models to make models, animations, rendering, designing, mostly for like films, games, and architecture projects. So this is a quick 3D Max interface. There's a main toolbar, ribbon, viewports, which is basically what we use the most. Time sliders where you edit basically like the animation. There's the Max Script mini lister. There's a lot more. Also the command panel is also one of the most important ones because that's where you basically create the objects and modify the objects or camera views and stuff like that. So tutorials, this is one that I have not done yet, but I'll gonna populate it more. I'm gonna add a lot more slides for this one. So 4 is gonna be primitives. The way to make primitives is in the command panel. In the command panel, you're able to make a lot of different types of primitives. An example I picked was how to make a box. So basically you click on object type, or go to object type panel, and then press box. Once you basically select a part of the viewport, and draw a little square. And after that, you're able to raise it up. So instead of just being a 2-dimensional object, you can make it into a 3-dimensional, like the one on the right here. You can also modify this box. So there's a lot of different ways for you to modify it. You could either do mirror, which is one of the options in the main tool bar, I believe. But you could also do it through the modifying tab, which is the one right here. So the modification I did right here is basically an array modification. So in the command panel, it basically gives you like more settings so you could change. One of the settings that I decided to pick for this example was basically making like a row of like 4 rows of squares. But you could also make you could change how many boxes are going to be on the y-axis or x-axis or c-axis. So you could just make like a lot of different boxes with the array. The thing is that since it is considered one object, if you try to edit just one box, it won't allow you, because it's considered to be just one item. Like the one of this, like whatever you do to this one's gonna do to all 3. I mean to all 4. So it's a little bit different from doing it through the main toolbar. So the primitive project that we did. So this is the first one. This was my final result. I had a lot of trial and error, but this is the last one I came up with. It's basically supposed to be a little trophy for LATC architecture. So right here, this is like the front view right here, the top view for with wireframe, right side view. And I did add a little sphere on top, which does have a little animation, which I could show you after. I just haven't put it into the slides yet, but it is there. And then right here in this little one, you could see that it says LATTC architecture, and it has my name on it. This was the first one I actually did. So probably within the first month of starting the class, I kind of messed around with it and just got this. But after a few times of presenting it to you, you gave me some feedback and told me how to make it better. But this was the first time I ever used 3ds Max. So it did get it a few upgrades. I feel like it's got better. So modifying, an example I picked for modifying is how to use cross section. I actually used it in my project to make the base, the body of the trophy. So basically, how you start off is you go into the the command panel. You create a spline, so a circle spline. You basically draw it, and then you basically make 4 circles. So basically, you make 4 of them, but each one is higher than the other one. After that, you select all 4 and you convert it into a editable spline. And after you make it into that, you're able to go into the you're supposed to attach them together. That way they're like all together. And so if you move one, they all move, or if you like rotate one, then they all rotate. So at that point, they're just basically one item, one object. After that, you go into the modifying tab and you select cross section. So cross section basically creates a cage for the object. So if you look at the picture on the right, you can see that it went from being just circles to actually making like a whole like cage. At this point, it only has a cage and the circles. So it's just gonna look, it basically has like a wireframe. So if you do try to render it, nothing will come out because it's not an object. So there is one more modification you have to input, which is the surface modification. Once you put the surface modification, this item, it will come out like this. At that point, it has like a whole surface. And you can make a lot of different items. I just decided to make the body for my trophy, but you can make a lot of different items. I saw a video where somebody made a spoon. You just gotta know how to use the tool, but it's a really cool tool to know how to use, I think. And then, so how to create an animation. So basically you select the item that you want to be like that you want to kind of animate, and you use the time slider. So when you're gonna do an animation, you basically click on set key, and every time you move the object, you're supposed to I believe it's, I'm not sure what, I think it's record. I'm not sure what the option is called, actually the command is called, but every time you move it, you're supposed to like basically record it. And that's how you basically make the animation. And you just repeat the process for the whole set key, the whole time slider. And that's about it for my PowerPoint. I still have to populate it, so I have a little bit more things to add. But I could show you the quick animation that I did. It'll be on this one, the big one. So this would be the animation. Have the little ball and it's bouncing off the little sides. Goes on top, it bounces a little bit more until it stays in the middle, and that's it.
presentation for the 3ds Max 261 class. We're gonna look at getting started with 3ds Max, the interface, some tutorials, primitives, modify, animation, materials, lighting, rendering, and also a little bit of twin motion rendering. So what is 3ds Max? It's a software to model, animate, and render. This is a little bit of the interface and where to find the commands. We started with creating primitives, and you can find those in the modify panel under standard primitives to create on the plus sign. These are some of the primitives I created in the beginning of the class in 3ds Max. Next, we moved on to modifying those primitives. I decided to use the melt modifier, the taper, and the shell. And this is a rendering of that. Next, we moved on to animation. And animation is set on this, and basically every time you move a primitive, let's say like the boxes, you would have to first click set key, move it, and then set key again to set the motion of the animation. And this is a video of this is the rendering of that. This is an example of an ADU and all the ways that you can lay it out here using the architecture program at LATTC. Next, we moved on to materials. This is a material editor. For this project, I wanted to create a lamp and put materials in it. And this was my rendering of that lamp that I made from scratch. And the materials I put into it. Next, we moved on to rendering. This is a rendering of a Revit file I already had. And I just imported it into 3ds Max. This is the same file, but I created a camera path like the one before. You can see a little bit of the materials here. This is another rendering of a tiny house. And we also moved into twin motion. This is a little bit of the interface of twin motion and where you can find certain commands. We decided to input a Revit file into an existing Revit file of an ADU and to Twinmotion to be able to add objects or materials. So you would export your file as an FBX on Revit first, and then open Twinmotion, and on the footer, import your FBX file. And to add an object, you would, it'll be on your left under library and objects. And to add a material, it's also in your library under materials. If you needed to edit a material, you would just click the material with the material picker, and you can find that on the header of Twinmotion. And with that, you can change the properties of the material on the panel that is on your right. This is a video of my ADU. And I also added materials on Twinmotion in this video. With Twinmotion, you can pan and also add clips of, like I did, of each room. This is a little bit of animation or creating a video on Twinmotion. This is the footer where you will find media. To do a video, you could do an image, a video, a pan, a walkthrough. For video, you would just click video, start a new video. And from here, you would click the plus sign at each scene that you make on your project. So to do a pan, just move your scene each time and refresh it here to create that moving motion of the video. And on your right, you would have everything from environment that you can change on the video, the camera length. And this is another video of the tiny house that I also created on Revit and imported it to Twinmotion with materials. And lastly, I think this is just how to import your video. So once you're in your video, on the footer again, you have media and you have export. You would click on export. On video, this is on your left. The window will pop up. You would select your video. See here, I selected the video. And on export, you can select your frame setup and start export, and that's how you would end with a video. This is another video rendering of the previous ADU you just saw. I did add on here a car passing by and a person walking through. And some of my resources. And that's all for my PowerPoint.
So here is my PowerPoint for ARC 261. I have my short bio. And then I did complete the LinkedIn Learning certificate for the essential training for 3D Studio. I don't go too in depth on tutorials and how to do things in 3D Studio, but I do have a few things like the interface and then a quick tutorial on lighting. So you'll select lighting from the command panel, free light, dialog box will pop up. You can select no, but this setting can be changed at any time. And then you add the lights onto wherever you want them in your project. And then you can go to the modify tab and modify all of the characteristics for your light, including the intensities and the colors as well. Then our first project was our metaverse portfolio or virtual portfolio. And for mine, I started off simple, just a rectangle with a pyramid, some towers and an easy little door. There's another view of it. And then I eventually added a bigger platform and pillars going all around as well to make it a little more interesting. My final design, I made the platform massive, so there's more room for everything, and a short circular animation. I need to redo this one because it's really fast. And then in other practices, I was messing around with the lighting. So this was without lighting. As you can see, it's very dark. And then this was after I added some lighting into it. You can see the shapes and objects better. Then from there, I imported my tiny house into 3D Studio. And I wrapped it in Warhammer artwork just because I thought it would look pretty cool. Something a little different. And then from there, I imported my ADU, which I still need to add materials and probably some artworks to it, but and that concludes my short PowerPoint.
Okay, this is my template for 3ds Max Studio. And this whole semester, I've just been watching like Linda tutorials. And right now I'm gonna be talking about like what I have learned throughout this semester about this class. So basically, obviously every software has an interface. So 3ds Max, this is the interface right here. We have the scene layout, which provides a modeled dialog or for viewing, sorting, filtering, and selecting objects in 3ds Max, as well as additional functionality for renaming, deleting, hiding, and freezing objects, creating and modifying objects hierarchies, and editing objects priorities and masse. Spline modeling. So basically, what spline modeling does is like it's a tool that you get to make like any shapes that you want basically in 2D. So right here we have like So basically we have a tool that you could like draw any shape you want. So as you can see here, like this person like just decided to like do a random shape, and that's what spline modeling does. Parametric modeling. This one was kind of interesting because any parametric you have, you get to change it like in any shape you want. Like for example, like this would be like the default of like a shape. And then right here, like if you go more into details, you get to make like any shape to make it look like this. And the polygon modeling, basically it's a panel that includes tools for switching sub-object levels, navigating the modifier stack, and converting objects to editable poly and edit poly and more. And this would be the interface of the polygon. So right here we have a variety of tools of the polygon modeling. And this is the subdivision surface modeling. A subdivision surface is a polygon mesh that has been divided into more faces while retaining the object's general shape. When you use a subdivision, it adds detail to an object or smooths it out. So basically right here in this image right here, we have like a more cubic shape. And then as you can see, like right here, it starts to change. Right here, it starts to change. And right here too. So that's what the subdivision surface modeling does. And the camera technique. So basically, the physical camera integrates framing the scene with exposure, control, and other effects. And how to use the camera. So basically, you want to create the panel, cameras, object, type rollout, physical, default menu, create menu, cameras, physical camera, alter menu, objects menu, and you go to cameras and you have your physical camera. So basically like what the camera does is like it lets you look on the very top of your project or any building. Lighting is another very interesting one. And this is one of the assignments that are doing. So basically lighting is a tool that can change your graphics into a more different look. In simple terms, lighting can make your objects simulate natural lighting. So as you can see in this little image right here, we have like a little, I'm assuming it's a kitchen. And the way you look at it, it just gives it that stunning, that lighting look to it, that realistic look. Materials, so basically materials, in 3ds Max, basically, if you have like any wall, like you get to like change it. So these are the types of materials that 3ds Max provides. We have aluminum, brass, leather, cardboard, chrome, and concrete, and we have so much more right here. And we have animation. So another very interesting one. So basically animation is like you have an object and then it basically like you're making like a little video of how you want it to move. So right here in this image, you can see like this guy, like he has a normal face and then it changes and changes. And now like it looks like he wants to sneeze. So basically like it gives you like different clips of like different movements. And this is rendering. So rendering creates a 2D image or animation based on your 3D scene. It shades the scene's geometry using the lighting you've set up, the materials you've applied, and environment settings such as background and atmosphere. So right here, rendering it kind of relates to lighting, just that it gives you more of a 3D scene layout. And yep. And right here is my certificate. And in the next couple of slides, hopefully by this week, I'm gonna start adding.
Good. So here's what I did so far for the final. I did my certification on Linda. And right now, I just took snippets of what I did. I did the rectangle using the Voronoi. And I did this, I was trying to do the circle of life, but I couldn't get the circle to quite connect. I'm still working on that. And I still have renderings on Twinmotion. That's all.
Hi, my name is Jack Greenberg. I'm showing the ADU with some materials on it for Architecture 261. But yeah, so I have some like interior components that have materials now. But yeah, just rendering this. It's like ultra modern outside desert house, I suppose. But yeah, I just downloaded Twinmotion, so I'm just getting familiar with it. And I still have to populate my PowerPoint for the 3ds Max tutorials and whatnot. But yeah, that's what I'm working on right now.
Begin.
My name is Lincoln. I'm taking Architectural Design 261 in Trade Tech College. This is final presentation. I have 6 files, including 3ds Max, basic operation, and the material editor, and drive around animation, turntable, and walkthrough animation. The difference between drive around and walkthrough is drive around is around the outside of the building. Walkthrough is go inside of the building. Let me show you the first one. Walkthrough animation. I have to open the 3ds Max. Just a second, I'm opening the 3ds Max.
I'll stop.
This is a walkthrough. This is my kitchen. I stopped temporarily. Let me start again. Okay, let me stop it. If I like to play that manually, I can do this. I manually slide this timer. See, I can go in back. See, I can manually slide this. From 0 to 1000. I set up 1000 from this timer configuration, time configuration. Start time 0, end time is 1000. Because normally the typical animation is 30 frames per second. 30 frames per second. If my animation takes 30 seconds, so 30 times 30 is 900. It's almost 1000. That's why I set up 1000 from 0 to 1000 to complete the animation. Then let me finish this. Click auto key first, then click play animation. This is the kitchen. Okay, let me stop this for now. So I have to stop sharing and share the screen again. Go to the next one. Drive around animation. So this is the drive through. Okay, let me stop this one. And stop sharing. So again, I click the auto key, then play animation. This is the museum I made. There's a stairway. Yeah, this one go faster. Then next one, let me stop again. And this is a PowerPoint.
1 minute.
Okay, this is PowerPoint about the material editor. So first of all, how to resize viewports. You can move the cross line. Where is the cross line? It's over here, the origin. There's a cross line. You can move around the dragging, change the size of viewport. There are 3 ways to maximize the viewport. First of all, you select the viewport, then click the maximize view toggle, or press Alt plus W key, or you can do click a plus sign and select maximize. This maximize icon at the lower right hand corner. The 3 ways to maximize the viewport. How to restore back to the previous view. Select the viewport, then click maximize view toggle. Select the restore viewport. It's right here, restore viewport. So again, 3 ways to do that. And how to change the viewport selection. In other words, select between front, top, left, and perspective view. Just type F, P, L, or P, respectively. This is material editor icon. You just click the material editor. It's in the toolbar. Looks like this. There's a small triangle here. It's called a fly out. Fly out. So when you click this icon, there are 2 choices. Either slate material editor or compact material editor. You have 2 choices, slate or compact. So what's the difference between these two? Material slate and compact. Slate material editor, they used on design and build materials. Design and build. Compact material editor, when material have already been created, and you just need to apply them. So this for applying the material. So which one is easier? So first, easy compact is easier. We can learn this first before learn this slate material. So there's 6 spheres, 6 different materials. What if you need more than 6 samples? You just click the 6x4. There is 6x4. You can select. Just click option. There's an option key. And select 6x4. Total 24 selections. Some sphere has a white box, around corner. What's that mean? It means the material has already been assigned to an object like this, white box. What is RGB? RGB stands for red, green, and blue. You can change the color, select the material color. RGB is the 3 primary colors. You can mix up red, green, and blue to make your own color. So RGB color model is an additive color added together, in which red, green, and blue colors are mixed together in various proportions to form a different array of colors. See over here, red, green, blue. You can change the slider. More red or more green or less blue to change your own color. Each RGB has 0 to 225 different shades. I got this information from ChatGPT. The RGB, red, green, and blue. You can mix up these 3 colors for the lighting, not for the printing. Printing color is different. You mix all 3 colors. See, you have a white color here. Okay, that's all the presentation today. Thank you.